Isaac Ward, and today I'll be talking about the rising costs of higher education. So imagine graduating with a diploma in one hand and $40,000 of debt in the other hand. So this is not an exaggeration. According to the U.S. Department of Education, the average federal student loan debt in 2024 was $37,583. And as a student currently attending Wabash College, I understand the financial burden of college firsthand. I have to take out loans just to attend Wabash, and as many of you probably do. So we all understand the financial burdens of college, and this is a topic that's extremely relevant to us. So the rising costs of higher education create long-term financial struggles and limit opportunities for low-income students and future generations. But there are viable solutions to this issue through government policy and regulation. So first, we will examine the problem, identify its causes, propose a policy solution, and demonstrate its feasibility. I'm Isaac Ward, and today I'll be talking about the rising costs of higher education. So imagine graduating with a diploma in one hand and $40,000 of debt in the other hand. So this is not an exaggeration. According to the U.S. Department of Education, the average federal student loan debt in 2024 was $37,583. And as a student currently attending Wabash College, I understand the financial burden of college firsthand. I have to take out loans just to attend Wabash, and as many of you probably do. So we all understand the financial burdens of college, and this is a topic that's extremely relevant to us. So the rising costs of higher education create long-term financial struggles and limit opportunities for low-income students and future generations. But there are viable solutions to this issue through government policy and regulation. So first, we will examine the problem, identify its causes, propose a policy solution, and demonstrate its feasibility. The issue is that decreased state investment has led to a lot of the financial burden to fall onto students. Between 2008 and 2020, state funding for public colleges decreased by 13% per student, contributing to tuition hikes, and this comes from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities in 2023. This reduction from state funds makes colleges have to increase their tuition to cover their operational costs, and so it just shows that all the burden is starting to fall more on students than the state. Administrative bloat and campus expansion are other major causes to this problem. Colleges are having increased spending on making campuses places where, they have a lot of different buildings that aren't school related at all, which they're trying to increase their attendance, and that comes with a cost, and that typically gets passed on to the students. And they're also having a lot of increases in administrative positions. A lot of people that aren't, professors or people that run the college, they have to operate these buildings, operate a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and a lot of these costs just go straight to tuition and fall onto the students. And that was shown in a paper by David J. Chapman. So now that we understand the causes, let's examine a policy-based solution. So the rising costs of education create financial struggles and limit opportunities especially for low-income students and first-generation students. But policy solutions can address this. My proposed policy solution is support the LOAN Act, and LOAN stands for Lowering Obstacles to Achievement Now. And this act would expand Pell Grants, lower interest rates on federal loans, and allow borrowers to refinance loans at current rates. And that comes straight from Congress, straight from the act itself. It also caps monthly student loan payments at 10% of discretionary income and includes debt forgiveness provisions. And some reasons to adopt it are expanding need-based aid helps a lot of students, especially low-income students, get access to higher education without having long-term debt. It also reduces interest and payments for these students, which is another aspect to just reducing long-term debt so students can, buy a home earlier, start a family earlier, get married earlier, so they're not just living with their parents trying to pay off this debt that just keeps growing and growing. Some argue that college is worth the high price because of the long-term return on investment, but it kind of ignores the unequal access and long-term harm to people who do take on high amounts of debt just so that they can have access to higher education with, no guarantee of completion or even getting a degree. So now let's consider how this policy can realistically be implemented. So this act has already been proposed to Congress last year in 2023 in October. There hasn't really been too much happening with it, so the logistics of implementing it are just supporting it and trying to get it passed because it's kind of just sitting in Congress's hands with nothing going on. And a real-world example of something similar to this is Tennessee's free community college program called Tennessee Promise. So what Tennessee does is any amount of college expense that's still left after need-based aid, Tennessee will cover it depending on your income. So that just demonstrates that it's feasible and it really is attainable. And in Tennessee, there's thousands of kids that apply for this every year and that get this aid from the state that covers all of the costs that they would not be able to cover without this program. So some action steps is citizens should vote for candidates who support higher education reform, and students and advocates should push for policies that expand these grants, that lower interest rates, that lower loan payments, so that there's not this long-term financial burden from just attending college and trying to get a degree. The rising cost of higher education is a pressing national issue that demands policy intervention. We've looked at the problem of unaffordable college costs, identified the root causes for these rising costs, and examined policy solutions such as the Loan Act and the Tennessee Promise program. So the choice here is pretty simple. We can continue burdening young people with, future financial issues, just high amounts of debt, or we can invest in a future where education is treated as a right, not as a privilege.